Jack, I'm not happy. I want a divorce. Her words landed like a punch to the gut. I can't say I didn't see it coming, though. After nearly 2 decades of marriage, I'd noticed Abigail had been leaning heavily on her so-called friend Sophia lately. Far too much, if I'm being honest. Sophia, self-appointed relationship guru, had somehow earned Abigail's trust despite her stellar track record of 3 failed marriages. In Abigail's eyes, that made her an expert. Jack, are you even listening? I said I want a divorce, she repeated, her tone sharper this time. I took a deep breath, letting the weight of her words settle over me. Yeah, Abigail, I heard you, I said evenly. But I'm not about to make any snap decisions here. I've tried to be a decent husband and a good father, and as far as I knew, things between us were okay, even in the bedroom. So, I can't help but wonder, what exactly went wrong? I let the silence hang for a moment before pressing further. If this marriage isn't making you happy anymore, as much as it kills me to hear it, I'll respect your decision. But tell me something. Has this been on your mind for a while? Or is it just something that hit you recently? She barely hesitated before replying. It's been building up for a while now. I need space, Jack. I need to figure out who I am. Maybe meet new people. Her words felt scripted, like she'd rehearsed them in front of a mirror. I think, she added, the courts require us to do a 90-day legal separation before filing for divorce. Who knows? Maybe I'll change my mind by then, and we won't even have to go through with it. I nodded slowly, recalling stories from others who had been through similar situations. So, during this 90-day separation, we can both see other people without it being considered cheating, right? And then, after that, if one of us still wants out, we can proceed with the divorce, no matter what the other wants. It was like a light bulb went off in her head as she realized I'd have the same freedom she was claiming for herself. So, if I file first, I'd have the same ability to decide whether we stay married or not, right? I asked. For the first time, she faltered. I guess that's true, she muttered, clearly caught off guard. I thought I made it clear that I want this divorce. Look, Abigail, I said, trying to keep my voice calm. I don't want a divorce, but if this is the path you're choosing, I'm not going to stop you. To make things fair, though, I'll file too. That way, we're on equal ground. Her eyes widened. Wait, does that mean you actually want a divorce now? She asked, almost incredulous. Not really, I admitted. But it's clear I've failed in some way as your husband, and I'm not about to cling to something that isn't working for you. For a moment, her expression softened, but she didn't apologize. Instead, she said coolly, You've been a great husband, Jack, but I want something different. New experiences, more freedom. A separation would let me explore that. Abigail, I said quietly, my voice catching in my throat. If there's something you need that I can't give, then I guess I was never enough for you. The words hung in the air, heavy and bitter. Tell me, I added after a pause. Have you already talked to a lawyer? She waved off my doubt like it didn't matter. Not yet, but I plan to meet with Lucas Matthews. Sophia recommended him. She said he's great. There it was, Sophia's fingerprints all over this. I smirked to myself. Well, I think I'll reach out to my cousin Megan to handle my side of things, I said casually. Abigail's face twisted in distaste. Ugh. Megan? She's difficult to deal with, Jack. Maybe, I said shrugging, but she's also incredibly loyal, and she's one hell of a lawyer. She'll fight tooth and nail for her clients, no matter what. I remembered a tipsy Megan at a family party once saying she'd represent me for free if I ever needed it. Looks like it's time to take her up on that offer, I muttered, half joking but too drained to laugh. All right, I said, turning the page. Let's aim to start the separation at the beginning of the month. That'll give us both time to get things in order. Abigail nodded but looked puzzled. Why does it matter when we start? Isn't the whole point of a separation to just try out life apart? Exactly, I said. But without a plan, we could be setting ourselves up for an even bigger mess. Think of it as a trial run, something to help us figure out if this is what we truly want. She hesitated, then said, Okay, Maybe. I hadn't really thought about it like that. I left her to stew in the bedroom while I moved to the kitchen to start some coffee and jot down a few notes. When she eventually joined me, I was already scribbling in a notepad. There's a lot to sort out, I said, glancing up. Let's start with the kids. Her face clouded. What do you mean? I explained. We need to figure out how we're going to tell them. They need to know this isn't their fault, and we've got to be on the same page with that. Abigail bit her lip, uncomfortable. I don't know, Jack. I don't think they'll take it well. Maybe we should wait the 90 days and see where things stand first. I shook my head, already seeing the flaws in her thinking. They're going to notice something's up. We owe it to them to be honest and reassure them. I suggested she stay in the house during the separation to give the girls some sense of normalcy. Maybe we could even spend time together here and there to make the transition easier for them. But Abigail shot that down. How are we supposed to date and have lives of our own if we're still in the same house, Jack? One of us will end up feeling bitter when the other goes out. Besides, the whole point of this is to see what life apart would really be like, not more of the same. She had a point. I couldn't deny it would confuse the girls if they saw either of us with someone new. We both agreed to approach the situation carefully, especially when explaining things to the kids. They'd need to understand we still loved them, even if our marriage was falling apart. We both acknowledged that counseling for the kids might be necessary, though we hoped their natural resilience would help them adjust. Trying to break the tension, I joked that if Abigail and I ended up with new partners, the girls could wind up with extra grandparents, which might mean more gifts at Christmas and on their birthdays. But the logistics of splitting holidays quickly sobered us. Birthdays, Christmases, Thanksgivings, each event would require careful planning from now on. Then, I brought up something even more awkward: discretion. If either of us starts seeing someone new, we'd need to keep that outside the house, I said firmly. Especially when the girls are home. Bringing dates here would only confuse them. I could see from Abigail's face that she wasn't thrilled, but after a moment, she nodded in reluctant agreement. The conversation turned to finances, a topic I knew would be unavoidable. We're both going to have to adjust to covering our own expenses, I said, keeping my tone calm and matter-of-fact. It was no secret that running two households would be far more expensive than sharing one, and Abigail's expression turned uneasy as the reality hit her. We'll need to split up the assets and close out any joint accounts, I continued. And we'll also need to set up child support to make sure the girls' lives aren't thrown into chaos. Abigail sat in silence as I laid it all out, looking stunned by how much there was to handle. There's a lot we'll need to figure out before we start this separation, I added after a moment. I'll start looking for an apartment closer to work, so the girls will be comfortable when they stay with me. I explained how standard visitation usually works, every other weekend and holidays for the non-resident parent. But I made it clear that wasn't enough for me. I want to stay involved in their daily lives, I said, not just show up every couple of weekends. Abigail tilted her head, giving me an odd look. I'm surprised you're not already dating, given how much you love spending time with the girls, she said, her tone almost teasing. I'm not in any rush to start dating, Dar, I replied, brushing off her comment. I'm not planning to vanish from their lives either. But if you're moving on with someone new, you'll need to take on some of the responsibilities I usually handle. We went over some of the logistics, how midweek visits might be tough with school and homework, the challenges of shuttling the girls between two homes, and the fact that my new place might not be on their bus route. Abigail's irritation grew as it became clear I wasn't going to quietly fade into the background. This isn't exactly how Sophia described things, she muttered under her breath, frustration bubbling over. I could tell she'd expected me to roll over and go along with whatever plans she and Sophia had cooked up. Instead, she was realizing things wouldn't be that simple. Well, Jack, she said finally, sounding exhausted, I need to sleep on all of this. I'm going back to bed. Maybe we'll talk more tomorrow. Sure thing, Dar, I replied, watching as she headed down the hall. But I wasn't ready to turn in. I need to get a few more thoughts down before I call it a night, I added. As she disappeared into the bedroom, I stayed in the kitchen, scribbling in my notepad. When she came out the next morning, She must have assumed I'd stayed up all night working on our divorce checklist. Instead, she found my notepad on the kitchen table and me asleep in the guest room. While her breakfast cooked, she started flipping through my notes. I'd labeled the list liabilities to change and detailed everything we'd need to adjust. The mortgage, homeowner's insurance, utilities, gas, water, electricity, cable, cell phones, garbage collection, internet, even subscriptions like Amazon Prime. I thought of everything down to the car payments and memberships. The sheer volume of it all clearly annoyed her. On the next page, I'd outlined projected expenses for my apartment and child support, aiming to maintain the girls' current lifestyle. The numbers weren't pretty, showing a shortfall every month. I even included little ideas to save money, like cutting out my Waffle House and Starbucks runs. Small sacrifices I was ready to make. But Abigail had scribbled her own expenses in next to mine. Her gym membership, a women's group she'd joined, eating out more often. It didn't look like she had any intention of cutting back. I'd also made a list of all the household tasks I typically handled. Refueling the car, calling the plumber, fixing the heater, mowing the lawn, grocery shopping, things Abigail would have to manage herself now. She stared at the list, visibly annoyed, muttering under her breath. Why isn't Jack doing what he's supposed to? Why won't he just give me what I want? Soon, I heard her whispering into her phone. Hey, Sophia, it's me, she said quietly, trying not to wake me. Jack's asleep in the other room, so I can talk. Sophia's voice came through, chipper and excited. How'd it go? Did he agree to do whatever it takes to keep you? Instead of triumph, Abigail sounded exasperated. No, she muttered. He actually agreed to the divorce without putting up a fight. Then he spent all night making lists of everything I'd have to take over if we go through with it. Her voice grew quieter, but I could still make out her frustration. Jack's already planning to move out and live like we're divorced. He's insisting we treat the 90-day separation as a real trial to see if this is what we want. It seemed Sophia's vision of a smooth, one-sided divorce wasn't panning out quite the way Abigail had hoped. He doesn't even seem rattled by the idea of a divorce, Abigail confessed, her voice tinged with frustration. It's making me wonder what my next move should be. I really thought he'd be crushed. Oh, Abigail, Sophia said with a dismissive laugh. He's bluffing. This is just his way of trying to manipulate you, to make you feel like you can't do this without him. All that talk about his contributions. It's a guilt trip, plain and simple. Sophia's tone turned sly. Don't forget you hold all the cards here. You've got control over two things he cares about. The kids and the bed. Use that to your advantage. Play your hand carefully, and before you know it, you'll be spending your nights with Nathan without a second thought, while Jack's stuck on the sidelines. I hope you're right, Abigail murmured, though her mind lingered on whether Nathan was really worth all this. Jack hasn't made any bold moves yet. I think I'll stay firm and wait to see what he does next. She glanced up and saw Jack stirring, so she quickly wrapped up the call. I have to go, Sophia. He's getting up. Talk later. Jack shuffled into the kitchen, looking disheveled and exhausted. Abigail tried to sound casual. Hey, want some coffee? No, thanks, he said, rubbing his eyes. Probably not a great idea this late. I barely slept. Why didn't you come to bed? Abigail hesitated, studying him. Why didn't you? She asked. Jack leaned against the counter, avoiding her gaze. I needed some air. Took a walk. Honestly, I didn't trust myself. He finally looked up, his expression conflicted. When I saw you asleep, all I could think about was how beautiful you looked. But I didn't want us to end up in bed together just because you felt sorry for me. Abigail softened her tone. Jack, we're still married. For now, I'm still your wife. Can't we? Shouldn't we be together? At least until the separation is official. Jack shook his head slowly, his face heavy with resignation. I can't pretend everything's fine, Dar. You've already said you're unhappy. As much as it kills me, I have to respect that. I promised to give this separation a real shot, and that's what I'm going to do. He sighed deeply, his shoulders sagging. I just want you to be happy, Abigail. Even if that means I'm not the one making you feel that way anymore. Abigail placed a hand on his arm, her voice soft. Just because we're separating doesn't mean we'll end up divorced. Can't you give me some time to figure things out? Maybe this space will help us come back stronger. Jack looked skeptical but nodded. Sure, Dar. I'd like to believe that, but I'm not holding my breath. He paused, glancing at the clock. I'm taking the day off to get a head start on things. Billy can handle the work crews. I'll make calls about splitting finances and setting up my accounts. Before she could respond, he added, and don't worry about the girls. I'll make breakfast and get them to school. Later that morning, Abigail's mood shifted when Nathan, her charming coworker, stopped by her office. With his usual flirtatious grin, he suggested they get together to listen to some music. The thrill of his attention made her heart race, and her mind flicked back to the steamy moment they'd shared in the elevator. For a moment, she let herself imagine a life with Nathan, but reality crept back in. The ongoing separation and the tangled mess of her marriage. When Abigail got home that evening, she noticed subtle signs that Jack had been there. An empty coffee mug on the counter, a jacket hung by the door. Oddly, it made her feel relieved. At least he hadn't packed up and vanished. All right, she thought to herself. 90 days of freedom. We'll stay married, and I'll figure out how to keep things with Nathan under wraps. Sitting at the kitchen table, she flipped through Jack's notepad. He'd added a few more tasks to their to-do list, but something else caught her eye. A page titled Possible Women for Today. Her stomach flipped as she read the two columns. One labeled women who have already expressed interest, and the other women I'd like to know if they are interested. Her blood boiled when she spotted her sister Sandra's name at the top of the first column. Fuming, she grabbed her phone and dialed. Sandra? What the hell is wrong with you? She snapped the moment her sister picked up. Are you trying to steal my husband? What are you even talking about? Sandra shot back, sounding genuinely confused. Jack made a list of women who've told him they'd date him, and guess whose name is right at the top? Abigail growled. Sandra sighed, unbothered. Oh, that? I told him once, after a few too many drinks, that if he ever left you, I'd be interested. Honestly, Abigail, he deserves better. Especially if you're already thinking about someone else. Abigail froze, stunned. You're serious? You'd actually go after him? Maybe I would, Sandra replied coolly. But let me ask you something. What's this about a list? Are things really that bad? Or is Jack already moving on? Abigail stammered. It's not like that. I just told him I needed time to figure things out. Sandra snorted. Right? Figure things out. Sounds like someone's already waiting in the wings. So who is it, Abigail? Nathan? Or someone else? There's no one else, Abigail snapped. We're in a 90-day separation to decide if this marriage is worth saving. Sure, Sandra said dryly. Well, just know this. If Jack ends up single, I'll be the first to step in. You're playing a dangerous game, Abigail. Don't be surprised if you lose. Sandra hung up, leaving Abigail seething. The thought of her sister swooping in made her skin crawl. She glanced back at the list, her eyes landing on another name. Grace, Jack's secretary. Young, stunning, and a single mom, Grace had the kind of fresh energy that made Abigail feel suddenly replaceable. What irritated Abigail even more than Sandra's name on the list were the others. One woman had a bold M next to her name, clearly marking her as married. The rest were women from around town, familiar faces she could place. Some worked in Jack's business, others in places he frequented, the Waffle House waitress, the Starbucks barista, the Walmart clerk. Each one left her stomach churning. Abigail always knew Jack's psychology degree gave him a knack for reading people, but now she wondered if he'd been inspecting more than plumbing while running his cruise. The realization struck her. He wasn't just passively going along with this separation. He was planning his next moves, maybe even preparing to move on. As she stewed over the implications, Jack walked into the kitchen, catching her with his notes in hand. Her face was taut with anger, and he didn't need to ask why. He could feel the storm brewing. Couldn't waste any time lining up a replacement. Could you? Abigail spat, her voice laced with resentment. And my own sister? Really? Jack didn't flinch. Just keeping up with you, Dar. You wanted time to meet new people. So I figured I'd take a page from your book. What are you even talking about? She huffed, her tone defensive. I don't have a boyfriend. I just needed space. Sure. What about Nathan Carter? Jack asked, his eyes sharp as they locked onto hers. Her face faltered. How do you know about him? She shot back, trying to sound unaffected. Jack shrugged casually. Ran into Chloe at Walmart. You know, your boss's secretary? She loves to talk. Don't believe everything she says. Abigail snapped, her mind racing. So what exactly did she tell you? Oh, nothing much, he replied with a faint smirk. Just that you and Nathan seem pretty close. Lunches together almost every day. Him dropping by your office more often than the janitor. He's an old friend from college, Abigail said quickly, waving it off. We're just catching up. That's all. Jack's expression didn't change. Catching up, huh? Is he part of those new connections you're exploring during the separation? It's not serious, she muttered, her voice growing quieter. We've barely done more than talk. He's just someone nice. He compliments me, even on days when I don't feel like myself. Aha, Jack said, unimpressed. Anything else I should know about him? Abigail hesitated, remembering the steamy moment in the elevator but refusing to admit it. At least he's not married, she said pointedly, deflecting. Jack raised an eyebrow. Not married? Have you checked his Facebook lately? Her face paled. What are you talking about? Found his profile pretty easily, Jack said, crossing his arms. Go ahead. Check it yourself. She didn't need to. The sinking feeling in her chest confirmed it. Is this the same Nathan Carter? She asked hesitantly. Jack nodded. Yep. And what does it say? Married to Hannah. Father of 2. He paused, letting the words hang. Actually, 3 days ago, his wife posted a cute family photo. Guess they're not as over as you thought. Abigail flushed with embarrassment and anger. He never told me he was married. I would never knowingly ruin someone's marriage. Jack's gaze didn't waver. But ours is fair game? Her mouth opened, then shut. The silence was deafening. Nathan had been the catalyst for her wanting this separation, but she couldn't let Jack know that. He's just one of a few people I'm considering, she deflected. Besides, you've got a list too. Jack rolled his eyes. Fine. If we're both considering dating, we should probably get tested for STDs, just in case. Jack! Abigail snapped, her face reddening. That's disgusting. It's just being practical, he replied coolly. Not something I was planning on needing. But hey, if this is what we're doing. Abigail fumed silently, but Jack shifted gears before the tension boiled over. Anyway, I've made some progress on the separation plans. The first of the month will be here before we know it, and there's still a lot to sort out. Bank accounts, finances, all of it. Oh, she said, forcing her voice to sound polite. Jack continued. Actually, the big news is about the apartment. Grace, my secretary, works part-time as a night manager at the Royal Arms Apartments. Turns out there's a 2-bedroom available close to work. Normally, it'd be pricey, but if I agree to handle some maintenance, I'd get a 50% discount. Not bad, right? Abigail felt a knot form in her stomach. Not only was Jack ready to move out, but he'd also found a setup that could make it easy for him to mingle with other single tenants. And Grace, of all people, would be right there in the mix. This means more money for you and the kids. By the way, Jack added, still flipping through the paperwork. Abigail's eyes narrowed. You haven't signed the lease yet, have you? No, not yet, he replied. But Grace has already offered to pull some strings to make it a short-term deal, just for the 90 days. She's been pretty helpful. Abigail's jaw tightened. I'm sure she has. Jack smirked, sensing her irritation. She even suggested that if the separation became permanent, she might step down to avoid a conflict of interest. Said she'd be open to exploring things with me if the timing were right. Surprised me, honestly. She's a lot younger, and I didn't think she'd see me that way. Abigail clenched her fists, biting back a retort. Well, she said finally, maybe if we stay open-minded, this separation won't need to turn into a divorce. Jack didn't bite. We'll see. Oh, and there's something else I need to mention. What now? Abigail asked, bracing herself. He looked her square in the eye. I had 2 tickets booked for Hawaii. 10 days. It was supposed to be a surprise for our 20th anniversary. Abigail's expression lit up immediately. Hawaii? Oh, Jack, you know how long I've dreamed of going there. I can already picture the beaches, the ocean, everything. She smiled wide, her excitement bubbling over. Thank you, thank you, thank you. But Jack didn't smile back. His face remained neutral, almost detached. Well, here's the thing, he began. When you brought up divorce, it hit me that we might not even make it to our 20th anniversary. I tried to cancel the trip, but it was too late, and they only offered a partial refund. Abigail's smile disappeared. So, no Hawaii? Jack shook his head. Not for us, no. I figured the trip meant more to you than it ever did to me. So, I had them change the tickets to your name and left the second spot open for a guest of your choice. If there's someone new in your life, feel free to take him. It's all expenses paid. Abigail's face morphed from shock to dismay. But, I wanted to go with you, Jack. Can't we call this separation off? Maybe I was wrong. Maybe I'm not as unhappy as I thought. Jack's voice softened, but his words were unyielding. Abigail, I've given this a lot of thought, too. And the truth is, I don't think I can ever forget how quickly you were ready to leave me. Even if you change your mind now, you can't unsay the words, or erase the image of you and Nathan that's stuck in my head. He swallowed hard, his voice tightening. So, I'm planning to move forward with the divorce. But that doesn't mean I'll be anything less than a full-time dad to our girls. He turned and walked upstairs, leaving Abigail frozen in her seat, reeling. For the first time, she felt like she'd lost control of the situation. There was only one person she could call. She picked up her phone and dialed. Sophia, she said, her voice cracking. It's all falling apart. Jack's already found an apartment. His skinny secretary is practically throwing herself at him, and my own sister wants to date him, and now he's giving away our Hawaii trip, told me to take my new boyfriend instead. What am I supposed to do? Sophia's voice was brisk. Wait a second. What's the problem here? You could take Nathan and have the time of your life. Sun, surf, and someone who actually excites you. Abigail shook her head, though Sophia couldn't see. No, Sophia. Nathan is married. His wife and kids are moving here soon. I can't go to Hawaii with him. I want to go with Jack. Sophia chuckled darkly. Wow, Jack's smarter than I gave him credit for. This Hawaii stunt is not what it seems. He's trying to guilt-trip you, Abigail. He wants you feeling bad enough to back down on the divorce. It's manipulation, plain and simple. Abigail's frustration boiled over. I never thought he'd pull something like this. But you're right. He's going to regret it. Thank you, Sophia. I almost gave in, but not now. Jack's going to pay for this. She hung up, just in time to see Jack coming down the stairs with a small suitcase in hand. Her anger surged. Oh, are we already pretending you're moving out? She sneered. Fine by me. Goodbye and good riddance. Jack raised an eyebrow. Actually, I'm just taking a few things to the apartment ahead of time. Grace offered to let me move in early since it's already vacant. I figured it'd be easier for the girls if I didn't pack all at once. His voice remained calm, but there was an edge to his words. Let me guess. You've been talking to Sophia? Sophia's a divorce expert, Abigail snapped. She understands what I'm going through, unlike you. And she figured out your little Hawaii ploy, too. She knows you're just trying to guilt me into staying. But it's not going to work. I still want the divorce, and I'm going to see it through. Jack's expression remained calm. You're absolutely right, Abigail. I'm sure you'll have no trouble finding someone else who meets your needs. His voice dropped slightly, more serious now. I always considered myself lucky to have a beautiful wife, a great partner in raising our girls, and, until recently, a loyal spouse. Her face reddened with anger. Stop with the act, Jack. I know there was no Hawaii trip. It was just another one of your games. Jack tilted his head, unimpressed. Believe what you want. But if you really think I'm lying, let's settle this. He pulled out his phone and began dialing. Hi, Lily? It's Jack Harper. My wife's here, and she has questions about the Hawaii trip. Could you explain the details? Abigail froze as she heard the voice on the other end. Lily sounded cheerful, even sympathetic. Mr. Harper, it's good to hear from you. I hope I can help. Mrs. Harper, what would you like to know? Abigail's voice was tight as she asked, Can you describe what this trip includes? Of course. Lily replied enthusiastically. It's a 10-day two-island adventure. You'd stay at top-rated hotels with all meals, transportation, and activities included. There's even a traditional luau, hula lessons, and options for surfing and snorkeling. It's a romantic package, perfect for couples. Many of our clients say it strengthens their relationships. Abigail tried to keep her voice steady. When did my husband book this trip? Let me check, Lily said, her tone professional. Here it is. He made the initial inquiry 3 months ago, finalized it 2 months ago, and paid in full shortly after. He called just yesterday to cancel. Unfortunately, we could only offer a partial refund. I was surprised when he asked to transfer the tickets to your name and suggested you take someone else. He must care about you deeply. Abigail clenched her jaw. Thank you, she managed to say before hanging up. She stared at the floor, her mind racing. Jack wasn't lying. He really had planned the trip. And now, she realized he had turned what should have been an act of love into a final, painful gesture. Abigail's eyes narrowed into a glare. So, you think you've outsmarted me, don't you? You and Lily cooked up this whole Hawaii scheme just to make me feel guilty, hoping I'd back down. Well, I figured you out, Jack. Jack shook his head, looking more drained than angry. Abigail, you might want to call your parents. That stopped her in her tracks. What do they have to do with this? Who do you think was going to watch the girls while we were gone? Jack asked, pulling out his phone. He dialed, and Abigail's mother picked up almost immediately. Hello, Jack. How are the girls? She asked warmly. Abigail stepped closer. Hi, Mom, she said hesitantly, her voice uncertain. Jack put the phone on speaker, and her father's voice joined in from the background. Benjamin, it's Jack and Abigail, her mother called out excitedly. Pick up the phone. Benjamin's tone was curious as he joined. What's going on, you two? Abigail stayed quiet, so Jack took the lead. Well, Abigail knows about the Hawaii trip now, so there's no need to keep it a secret anymore. Oh, son, we're so sorry you can't make it, her mother replied, sympathy evident in her voice. You didn't explain much when you called earlier. I hope everything's okay. Her father added, We were really looking forward to having the girls here for those 10 days. Abigail, I know how much you wanted this trip. Have you decided who you'll take with you? Abigail's face flushed as she stammered. No, Mom. I haven't thought about that yet. Trying to regain some footing. She asked, When did Jack tell you about this trip? I think it was around New Year's. Wasn't it, Benjamin? Her mother replied. He wanted to make sure we had enough time to prepare for the girls. You know how much they love snacks. She chuckled lightly, as if this were still just a fun family conversation. But then her tone grew serious. Jack? She asked carefully. Is everything okay with you too? When you called earlier, you seemed off. Did something happen? Abigail? Her father pressed, his voice hardening. Are you two splitting up? Abigail scrambled for control. Mom, Dad, no, it's not like that. We're just taking some space. A little separation to recharge the marriage and then reconnect. Jack's jaw tightened, and his voice cut in firmly. I'm not going to lie to your parents, Abigail. They've always been honest with me. Her mother's voice cracked. Abigail. Honey, is that true? Are you really starting a divorce? Abigail rushed to soothe her. Mom, please don't get upset. I just wanted some time to figure things out, to work on myself. For Jack, for the girls, for all of us. Her father wasn't buying it. That's a load of nonsense, Abigail. Is there someone else? Is that why you're doing this? No, Dad, she whispered, her voice barely audible. There's no one else. Her father's disappointment hit hard. We raised you to value family, Abigail. Don't think for a second we'll be welcoming some new man into our lives. Jack, you're like a son to us. We're so sorry. Just promise us we'll still get to see the girls after all this. Before Jack could respond, Abigail jumped in, desperate to shift the conversation. This is all being blown out of proportion, she said quickly, her voice cracking. I'm taking it all back. No separation. No divorce. I'll call you later, Mom, when things calm down. Jack looked at her with a mix of exhaustion and determination. Pull yourself together, Abigail. The girls will be home soon. He grabbed his suitcase and moved toward the door. Wait, she said, reaching out. Where are you going? I just said I don't want a divorce. You don't have to leave. Jack turned to face her, his voice steady but resolute. You decided you wanted a divorce, Abigail. You didn't talk to me, didn't give me a chance. And now, because it's not going the way you planned, you think you can just take it all back? That's not how this works. I have a voice too. And after everything I've learned about you this past week, I'm not so sure staying married is the right choice anymore. Abigail's face twisted with desperation. Jack, please don't go. This was a mistake. I know I messed up, but we can put it behind us. Things were good before, weren't they? We were happy. I don't want to lose everything over one bad decision. Jack sighed deeply, his expression unreadable. Maybe we were happy, but I can't forget what you said. That you were unhappy and ready to start something with Nathan. Intent matters, Abigail. As far as I'm concerned, that was emotional infidelity at the very least. He paused, his voice sharpening. Megan mentioned she could have the divorce papers drawn up by tomorrow. You could be served at work, right in front of Nathan if that's how you want to play this. Her voice turned cold. I won't sign them. Jack shrugged. Doesn't matter. Once you're served, the process moves forward. Maybe your boss should know about you and Nathan. I imagine your company has rules about office relationships. Her face went pale. Why are you being so cruel? She whispered, tears brimming. I love you. You love me. Jack's gaze softened slightly, but his words remained firm. I loved the woman I married. I'm not so sure who you are anymore. With that, he turned and walked out, leaving Abigail standing there, her carefully constructed plans unraveling. For the first time, she realized she might have lost control. For good. Why are you doing this, Jack? Why go to such extremes? Abigail's voice cracked, her desperation palpable. Isn't there anything I can do to fix this? You said yourself that divorce would hurt both of us. Can't we avoid all that pain? Please just give me one more chance. I swear I'll never bring up divorce again if you stay. Jack remained silent, his expression unreadable. Abigail's heart raced as she clung to the faint hope that he might reconsider. I'll be the best wife, she promised, her words tumbling out in a rush. I'll never even glance at another man. I've given you 2 beautiful kids, stood by you while you built your business, even when it meant late nights and weekends away. Jack, I'm proud of everything we've built together. Everyone makes mistakes. Please, don't let this be the end. Jack finally broke the silence, his voice measured and calm. All right, he said. Here's what I'll do. I'll take my suitcase and sleeping bag to the apartment, but I'll come back at 7. Between now and then, there are a few things I need you to do. Abigail's face lit up with hope. Yes, anything. Just tell me what you need. Jack's eyes locked onto hers, his tone firm. First, I want a written apology. And I mean a real one. No excuses, no justifications. Second, you need to tell Nathan to never contact you again. Make it clear that if he does, there will be consequences for him and possibly your company. Third, I want a list of reasons why I should stay married to you. He paused, his face darkening. And last, you'll need to call Sophia and end things with her. Permanently. I don't want her influence in our lives anymore. That's non-negotiable. Do you understand? Abigail nodded quickly, determination rising within her. Yes, Jack. I'll do everything you asked. I'll have it ready by 7. Jack gave a small nod and left, his face guarded. As the door closed behind him, Abigail took a deep breath. Her mind swirled with thoughts of the tasks ahead. Breaking ties with Sophia would be the hardest, but to her surprise, the idea brought a strange sense of relief. For the first time in years, Abigail realized how toxic Sophia's presence had been. She picked up her phone and dialed. "Sophia," she said, her tone firm. "I need to tell you something." She paused for a breath before continuing. "Listening to you was the worst decision I ever made. Because of you, I almost lost my family. Don't call me, don't text, don't email. And if I see you in public, don't even look at me. We're done." Before Sophia could respond, Abigail hung up, feeling a weight lift from her shoulders. Next, she dialed Nathan. "Nathan," she said curtly, "I'm ending all contact. My husband has made it clear that if you try to reach me again, legal action could follow. And if I hear from you, I'll be calling your wife. Do not test me." Nathan tried to argue, but Abigail cut him off and ended the call. For the first time in weeks, she felt a surge of satisfaction. Finally, she sat down to write her apology and list of reasons for saving her marriage. Memories of her life with Jack, once taken for granted, now felt precious. The words came easily as she reflected on their years together. Her guilt deepened as she realized how close she'd come to losing the man who had always stood by her. At exactly 7, Abigail sat waiting, her heart pounding. When Jack walked in, he didn't have his suitcase. His face was unreadable as she handed him the papers, her hands trembling slightly. Jack read through her words in silence. His eyes misted over, and for a moment, Abigail thought she'd reached him. She moved to embrace him, but he held up a hand. "Abigail," he began, his voice thick with emotion, "I can see you put a lot of thought into this, and it's impressive." He sighed deeply, looking at her with a mix of sadness and affection. "But I don't think you fully understand the damage this has done. I can't just erase what's happened or pretend things can go back to the way they were. I still think the divorce might be necessary." Abigail's face crumpled as her legs gave way, and she sank to the floor, her sobs filling the room. "I've ruined everything," she choked out. "I've destroyed our family. I don't deserve to live." Jack knelt beside her, his voice soft but firm. "Now you understand how I've felt." He stood and turned toward the door but paused, looking back at her. "During the separation, are we allowed to see other people?" he asked, his voice gentler now. Abigail looked up, confused, her tears subsiding for a moment. Yes, I suppose," she said cautiously. Jack's expression softened. "Then, what are your plans for Friday night?" Abigail blinked, unsure of what he meant. "What do you mean?" she whispered. He smiled faintly. "If we're supposed to be figuring things out, would you like to have dinner with me? Maybe catch a movie?" Her eyes widened in disbelief. "You're asking me on a date?" Jack's smile grew slightly. "Yes, I think our old relationship might be gone. But maybe we could try starting fresh." A rush of hope flooded Abigail's chest as she jumped to her feet, her heart racing. "Yes, Jack,